Welcome back with our next speaker, Julian von Plato, who joins us from South Africa. Welcome to Kuble CONF 2020, Julian.
How are you?
I will interview you about your experiences with DiscovrTV, a platform for music live streaming that you founded. And while we speak, we will see the website later and a couple of examples that you also wanted to show. First, I would like to start with a very general question that many people ask themselves. How do you become a live streamer? Many people start as a hobby next to their other job. What's your background and how did you start streaming?
Oh, it's a long story. We don't have that much time, but I've been involved in the music industry for roughly about 35 years now. And originally, the very first live stream in South Africa actually was about 15 years ago. And I worked on the South African Music Awards for the last 20 years or so. And we did a live stream backstage at the South African Music Awards with a Nokia N90, I think it was, to a platform called Quick. We had 3 people watch. And that's where it began. And to give you an idea, this year's South African Music Awards was watched online by over 1 million people. So that just gives you kind of an idea. And that's really where it started from me, because I've been involved in music and the IT industry. I've done tech support for a couple of IT companies as well. So I kind of saw the merge of internet and music coming quite a while ago, and also worked as a sound engineer because I'm a musician myself. So kind of that was really my background. And then kind of from that, it really built, and I became pretty much, there was 2 of us that were pretty much doing all the live streams in South Africa for a long, long time. And then COVID came, and all of a sudden everybody's a live streamer.
Exactly.
Which is quite interesting, yeah.
And but now you have some experience already with your own platform, DiscovrTV, that I just mentioned. Why did you start this platform?
So originally I was part of the Balcony TV offering, which was pretty much a global offering started by a guy by the name of Stephen O'Regan, which was an incredible platform, which was basically short form videos shot on balconies around the world. It landed up being in about 70 or 80 countries. I ran South Africa for a long, long time, for nearly 10 years. But those were all VOD clips. But what I started doing as part of it is we used to have live events once a month. And those events would end up being streamed live onto Facebook. And we saw how much that grew and how much our South African audience increased due to the live streams more than the VOD clips. And for me, that was a major, major, obviously, change that I saw happen. And then when Balcony was bought out by Sony / The Orchard, they kind of shut down Balcony TV Global. And myself, Christoph, and Marie, who were part of the Balcony TV offering, decided to start Discover TV. And kind of that's how it all began. And we've literally decided that we wanted to be more than just a point and shoot platform where it was just shooting short clips, became a lot more involved around podcasting, live video feeds, live concerts, etc., which is really what we try to turn Discover TV into, and what we're doing more of today as we've kind of grown from there, utilizing a proper CD and making sure that we're delivering high quality video to consumers.
And in the end, how does the platform work? You just outlined now how you started it, but how is it? Yeah. How does it work for users, for the audience who watch?
So essentially, we've used the Vimeo CDN as our back end, and I think Vimeo, because it's a global platform and everybody's kind of used to it. And one of the things I've really liked about Vimeo as a platform, it's got integrated social sharing. So if you push live on Vimeo, it automatically will go live onto your YouTube channel, automatically live into your LinkedIn, and automatically live into Facebook. Obviously, Instagram is still a major problem when it comes to live, which we're seeing in a big, big way. But from that end, we took Vimeo, we used that as our back end, and And then we built on top of that. I've partnered with two companies. One is a company called Blacklight. We've built our live event page, which I sent you a link to earlier, which we'll show just now. And then obviously our Discover.TV platform, which is more a showcase of all the Vimeo content from VOD to live. And then obviously we push through social media. So we live stream a lot of our events onto YouTube, onto Facebook, especially the podcasts. But I'm as sure as you guys know as well now, live streaming of music onto Facebook is becoming a major issue. And it's something that we're having to obviously battle with quite a lot at the moment. So we're tending to be a lot less live on Facebook unless it's a podcast. And then we also partner with the mobile networks in South Africa. So I've got another partner company called Pocket TV, where we stream live onto mobile networks as part of subscription services in South Africa, which is a growing industry right now.
Yes, very interesting what you just mentioned about Facebook. I think we can go into more details later. Maybe there are also questions from our audience, and please continue to send your questions and comments. And the platform discussion, actually, that's something that we already started with previous sessions when we discussed about YouTube and Twitch. Primarily.
Mixcloud's another one that we're using quite a lot of all of a sudden. With Mixcloud going live on video, that's becoming quite a big thing. So we actually launched onto Mixcloud about 3 weeks ago, and we're actually starting to see quite a lot of traction on that. Twitch obviously is more focused on gaming, but there's definitely a move into music as well now on Twitch. I live stream for a major artist in South Africa by the name of Black Coffee. He's probably Africa's biggest DJ, and with his live streams, we've been going a lot into the Twitch environment, and we've been seeing the numbers on Twitch. To give you an idea, during lockdown, Black Coffee did over probably 3 to 4 million live streams during the lockdown period since the beginning of March.
Quite a lot. So, and by the way, the audience, you can now see DiscovrTV next to Julian and me while we talk, and I'm sure that gives you a better understanding of what we're discussing. And as you can see, it's there's a lot of music and music formats available on there. Now, you mentioned that live streaming is booming across industries for various topics. How are music and concerts different as opposed to other formats and other content?
So I think, look, in the beginning of lockdown, specifically as we went into this whole COVID-19 experience, we launched our home concert series, which essentially, obviously, artists could not leave their homes. So they needed opportunities to obviously still be able to promote the music and potentially make money out of their shows. So what we did is we launched a series called the Home Concerts, and we invited artists to come on. We had a monetization platform where you could make donations to the artist using PayPal and various other platforms, and essentially had a QR code in the window next to them, and you were able to watch the show and donate money to the artist, as opposed to a typical pay-per-view, because I think a lot of people are still a little bit scared of pay-per-view. So the donations platform was very, very important in that beginning part of lockdown, and you saw that boom across the world. I mean, that became a major thing as we went as this happened. But then Facebook caught on and realized that, hang on, they don't have rights. They have not signed any deals with the record labels. They started shutting them down. So it's become a major issue now, especially with the live concerts. I know they've launched in the States where you can do pay-per-view on Facebook, but we don't have that in South Africa or any other African territories as of yet.
Okay. And so one more question that many people ask themselves, I asked initially, how did you become a live streamer? And now once a person decided, I want to become a live streamer, I want maybe just on a low level, I want to start experimenting with live streams. What's usually the type of the technical setup and the type of equipment that you recommend to use, or that you are recommending now as an advanced streamer, of course?
Everybody starts with these. Let's be honest. Everybody starts with a mobile phone. All your first live streams are always typically off a mobile phone. What the guys tend to do is they plug an iRig into their mobile phone, so they've got an audio feed into it, and this is your first live streaming device. And it's pretty much, if you look at even gamers to artists performing live, they begin on their mobile phone. But obviously, this is a single camera experience. You're even getting things like OBS for mobile now, etc. But you can go directly live off your phone into multiple platforms. So you can go live onto Facebook, you can go live onto YouTube, you can go live onto Twitch, Vimeo off your mobile phone. But obviously, that is an entry level. We're talking now to get to more of an experience of a 3 to 4 camera. Currently, I'm live streaming off a Panasonic camera into a Blackmagic web presenter, and I've got a microphone going into that as well. So that's a very simple setup that I'm streaming right now. But the de facto live streaming tool right now is the ATEM Blackmagic. And I'm sure you guys, these are pretty much sold out around the world. But this little baby is a 4-camera HDMI input live streaming unit, which allows you to multicam, and it literally fits into your pocket. You can put it inside your jacket pocket, and off you go. Takes an audio feed as well. This, without a shadow of a doubt, I say is probably my favorite toy, managed by, especially if you're podcasting, the Rode Procaster. So essentially for me, as a live streamer, that is my entire OB van. Obviously excluding the cameras right now. But this is my OB van. The Procaster allows me to bring in all my audio feeds, allows me to control remote sources such as mobile phones, Bluetooth. Obviously, that plugs directly into my ATEM, and there I have got a full kitted OB van in a backpack. Now, if you consider your typical broadcast vans of the past were massive trucks, you know, with full multicam setups and audio setups, and they've got a different guy for this, a different guy for that, a guy running patch cables here, etc., etc. That's it. And I mean, one of my go-to cameras at the moment is the GoPro 8, especially for a nice wide. So I plug a couple of these in, 2 cameras for close-ups, and bang, I've got a fully professional live streaming setup that I can put in a backpack, and I can go anywhere in the world and live stream. And I think that has become the key to live streaming now. It's not a case of just having to go and hire a massive OB van or buy a huge amount of equipment. Essentially, and I'm sorry, I don't know what the euro price is, but we're looking for a setup here, probably around about 50,000 Rand. If I'm mistaken, it's about 2,000 or 3,000 euros. Yeah. And you've got a pretty serious little live stream setup in a backpack.
Yeah. Big difference to what it used to be. We have a question from our audience regarding equipment. You didn't mention lights yet. What type of light is needed for good quality?
I'm using LED panels. So any decent LED panel, which you can buy on Amazon.com or anything like that. I mean, pretty much, I'll actually just ask Aiden, one of my camera guys, just to pass me one of the LED lights that we've got. And, you know, any decent little LED panel that you can use in a studio. At the moment, I'm sitting in a green room studio that I've just built in one of my spare bedrooms in my cottage at my house, and I can pretty much do multi-camming in here as well. So yeah, just a standard LED light will do you perfectly good.
Good to know. Now we talked about the technical setup, equipment requirements. What are other success factors for interesting and successful
content?
And
good content?
And
content is king.
If you can you go into more detail? Where does it start?
Music content is probably the easiest, because you take a band, you put a camera on them, and you live stream them. You can get a decent audio mix out of the camera, and you pretty much live stream them from that. You know, it's a nice, simple setup. So, but podcasts, obviously, we've seen the likes of Joe Rogan, who sold his podcast to Spotify for $1 million or more. I don't even know how much it was. And all he did was sitting at a table, being able to have a discussion with somebody like yourself, and he's doing this every week. And now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, the podcast industry. So I think, look, the key is telling a story has always been a vital part of any piece of content. If you can tell a good story, you'll have a great piece of content, and people will find it interesting. You know, there's a prime example of a TikTok video that just went viral. The one from Fleetwood Mac's Dreams, where that guy is just on a skateboard, drinking cranberry juice, listening to that track, and that thing has gone absolutely viral. Why did it go viral? Because Dreams is actually a brilliant song. It's one of the greatest songs ever written, and that's why Fleetwood Mac is still such an important band in our time. It's all about relevance. a storyline, and great content, and shoot it nicely. I mean, you don't want to go, yes, a phone's great for starting, but this is not where you're going to get your best quality content is off a mobile phone. Although mobile phones today, these new Samsung, I'm sure you've seen these new Fold 2s, they're ridiculous. I mean, they're insane.
How much does the platform matter? Because we also have questions regarding, you mentioned Facebook. What do you think? That's one of the questions. What do you think about LinkedIn live streaming?
We've been testing with LinkedIn live streaming. I think if you're doing podcasts, it's great. I think for live music, it's not really going to be a relevant target audience. I must be honest, for me, the #1 platform as a CDN for any content creator is Vimeo.
Yeah.
Because of Vimeo also has all the rights in place with the record labels.
Yeah.
You're paying for a service that is quality. They've got support. Have you ever tried to get hold of Facebook when they cut your stream off for no reason at all? You can't. It's impossible. And they are cutting people's streams off midstream because they used a copyright piece of music. Work with somebody that understands what live streaming it is. And for me, Vimeo, YouTube's great as well. Look, there's a reason YouTube is so big. But I think if you're trying to build something and you're trying to use a CDN that will be valuable to you, Vimeo for me has been my starting point, and I won't go back on it.
Very good to know. And DiscovrTV, as we've seen it before, you actually brought us another link that we will also show right away, this /live link. We're just preparing it. And before, I would like to ask one more question in general about DiscovrTV as a global platform. Do you observe differences between audiences in different countries?
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you speak to Christoph, who runs our DiscovrTV Europe office, he essentially it's very much. There's a saying we have in South Africa, and you might not understand, but essentially what it says is local is lekker. Essentially what that means is we are very much driven by what is around us from a content perspective. So local is relevant. And there's a thing that we always talk to when we talk to content people is hyper-local content is critical to understanding your audience. If I'm trying to reach a South African audience and I go and put on a group from Switzerland that are singing in German, most people in South Africa are going to sit there and go like, sorry, means nothing to me. But if I put a South African band that they know that they've been brought up to, they're more likely to watch that content. So hyper-local content is critical to understanding your audience. If you deliver content that is relevant to your audience, they'll watch.
Yes, actually about audiences and differences, there's one more question. What do you observe in terms of attention span? For how long do people usually watch such a concert? Do they just come by for 5-10 minutes, or how do you create a live stream that is actually interesting for 30 minutes, 1-2 hours?
So this is a very interesting point, and it's something that I've been studying for several years, especially being involved in the South African Music Awards for so long. When we first started streaming the South African Music Awards live onto mobile, we obviously found that people were watching for a longer period of time. But as YouTube grew, etc., you found that you had people sitting at about a 2 to 3 minute attention span before they moved on to something else. We found that it's definitely grown, and that's probably been thanks to the likes of the Netflixes and Hulus and Amazon Primes of the world, because people have got used to watching long-form content on their mobile device. And I think with things like, if you have a look at things like Glastonbury going live, Coachella going live, all the big shows, people are now taking more time, and things like Joe Rogan. So I think where you looked at an attention span of 2 to 3 minutes probably 5 years ago, you're probably looking at an attention span of 10 to 20 minutes now. And especially because of podcasts. And hopefully when you're having talks like this, people become interested, so they stay on for longer. And I think that is critical. And again, it's about your subject matter, and it's about your content being relevant. Because if your content is rubbish, people are not going to stay and watch it. Doesn't matter how well it's formed. It has to be relevant to your audience.
Now, the feature I just mentioned, DiscovrTV/live, we can see it now. We can see a login window. That's correct. Yeah. And what is it doing?
What we're trying to do is build a database and a community, because I think what's happening now is communities are becoming vital. So one, the biggest thing about retention of your audience is gamification. And I'm sure you had this in terms of some of your chats you've already had.
Exactly. We just had a chat about esports and Twitch. And previously, actually, we had a chat about Julian Hosp. He was describing exactly what you just described, how building a community is so important.
So that's what we're trying to do with our live stream. So we're encouraging people to register, become part of our community, and they can earn points. So essentially, the more you watch, the more you earn. Interact, post, do things like this. And every month, we're going to start giving away prizes to people. So we'll give away, let's just say, for example, I'm not going to say I'm going to give one of these away, but using this as an example, that once a month, you'll be able to win a live streaming piece of content. We have a great partner in South Africa called Icons who support us in a big way, and they offer us prizes every month to be able to give away to people. So gamification is key, understanding your audience, getting to know your audience, and building a database. Because if you're going to try and eventually start bringing in sponsors, advertisers, understand when you create a Facebook page, you do not own your audience. Facebook does. So what we're trying to do now is build up a community that we own and that we have a one-to-one relationship with, so that eventually we can start to monetize content. We can help artists earn more revenue. We can help content creators earn more revenue, because our idea, the original idea of DiscovrTV was discover your city through music. So all of these producers that we work with around the world, they need to make money. What's the best way to make money? Through advertising and sponsorship, but it has to be hyper-local and relevant to them.
So here I think we see,
we've launched live.
And I think here we see that the platform is open to everybody.
Yeah, everybody. All you have to do is register. So you can register either, look, it's a platform in build, so we're slowly evolving it, and I'm working with a great partner company in South Africa called Blacklight, who have developed the platform with us, and we're slowly evolving this. And funnily enough, this platform was built out of the fact that corporate events died when lockdown happened. So conferences like this that you would normally go to and sit needed a place to happen.
Exactly.
And that's actually what that platform was built for.
There was one more question regarding two formats that you referred to. You were talking about podcasts and live streaming. What's the difference from your perspective? Because podcast is just audio, or how do you define it differently?
So essentially, and I always have this argument, is a podcast is audio. Yes, it is audio, but a video podcast is exactly the same thing, isn't it? Because what we're doing right now, you and I, is a podcast, but we're doing it with video. That's the only difference, and we're live streaming it. Now, for example, with Mixcloud, when I do my podcast show, for example, I have a show on a Monday night called New Music Mondays, which is hosted between myself here and Martin in London. And we bring in two artists two from the UK, two from South Africa. We interview them, have a discussion like you, play their music video. We live stream it onto Mixcloud as video. The day after, that's automatically made available as a podcast on Mixcloud in audio. So, it's just multi-format, essentially what it is at the end of the day. It's still a podcast.
Yeah, and maybe we could say that for podcast, the video is optional. You don't really need to see us speaking.
No.
Yeah.
No, but some people like to, because you might have interesting guests.
Then there was one more question about sort of recent developments in live streaming and also how platforms change somehow.
Yeah.
Are you afraid of being censored? Have you ever seen something? You mentioned music rights and these types of issues, but also sort of censorship regarding freedom of speech, issues like that?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's a massive debate happening in South Africa right now around freedom of speech. The government are wanting to censor content, especially in the digital divide. The beauty of the digital world is we will always find a way. That's how Napster was born. That's how, all of these things were born because people needed to find a way to be able to deliver a piece of content that your typical broadcast company didn't own. We will always find a way. That's the beauty. I mean, is VR the next thing in terms of live streaming? We don't know. But the one thing is for sure, as consumers, as content creators, there'll be a way. So, no, I'm not worried about censorship. We'll just find another platform to broadcast on.
You just mentioned the pandemic, of course, is a big topic, and it's also the driver between the boom around live streaming.
Yeah,
and there's one more
definitely.
question about that. You described how many corporate events can't take place anymore physically. Now they're being moved to live streams, and what do you see sort of are the biggest challenge for corporations to behave in this new world, because they're not as flexible and as spontaneous as you are, of course?
Look, my partners, Blacklight, are doing a lot of, they do probably 5 to 6 corporate events like this a week. It's a challenge, but it's an opportunity. It's a challenge because they don't have a face-to-face interaction with their customers the way they used to. You know, they're not going to be sitting face-to-face in a room with them and trying to sell a product. Now, all of a sudden, they have to use this digital world to be able to communicate directly to their customer or their consumer, and they don't understand it. And I think that's the biggest challenge, is not understanding this format. And I use a great example about this is when YouTube first started, brands were throwing advertising and throwing their TV ads onto YouTube, right? But what was the biggest issue? Skip ad. Ad played for 5 to 10 seconds. Now, generally speaking, a television ad only starts to make any sense after about 5 to 10 seconds when you understand the brand. Now, people were just skipping ads. So brands were spending all this money on YouTube advertising, but the consumer didn't understand. They didn't ever see the ad because the brands did not understand the medium. And I think that's what the next big thing is that corporates need to understand the medium that they are starting to talk to, and they have to understand how to engage with that audience. So I think that is the biggest challenge facing corporates right now, especially in the live streaming. And look, some of them, I've seen it with the mobile companies in South Africa. They're definitely trying to make a difference in that space. And I think we've got massive opportunities there. But where there's challenges, there's always opportunity.
Exactly. And now you already described some developments around your platform that you're adapting to, for example, community building. You mentioned building a database is a key success factor. Are there other trends and developments that you're observing and you see on the horizon when you look into the future of DiscovrTV and live streaming in general?
I want to get into VR. I'm sure you've seen the movie Ready Player One. It's probably one of my favorite books of all time as well. I think there's massive opportunity there. Augmented reality, I think there's huge opportunity. So, for example, when you're watching something, you pick up a brand, you can click on that brand, order that brand. I think there's a lot of opportunities in AI, AR, all of these kind of things when it comes to content that I think we're only going to start seeing happen in the next 2 to 3 years properly, because I think there could be something. So, for example, you're wearing a T-shirt. I'm a big vinyl person, so I love my vinyls. Now, this is a vinyl shop in Johannesburg. If you saw that T-shirt with your phone, you can literally click on that T-shirt and order a vinyl. You know, and all of these, I think you're going to see a lot more interactive buying, a lot more interactive in that kind of way. I think it's an interesting time. I think live streaming is just the tip of it. It's how we take it to the next level, utilizing VR, utilizing AI, utilizing AR, understanding our consumer. And I think that's going to become critical now, because we're all after that consumer now. The consumer has been flooded. And I think we saw it in the beginning of COVID. Everybody was watching. So your views were great. You were getting 1,000 streams. There's a community I work with called Jeff Together. It is a fitness community. Now, what happened is this husband and wife started in their lounge at the beginning of COVID. They decided they wanted to help people in their home stay fit. It has now grown to 90 countries around the world, over 60,000 people watching every day. They are now doing 5 live streams a morning globally of people now, and this is from their home. They've got other coaches just building this community of people engaging with each other, staying fit, staying healthy, and it's a whole new world. And that was born out of COVID and providing something that people needed. I think that is critical right now.
And by the way, as a vinyl fan, you're the perfect guest for our conference, because you can see some vinyl behind me. There's even a player next to me. Maybe we can show it. It's even playing for the breaks in between sessions. We use that music. You can see it here now. And you just described this, I think, business that was born out of COVID. Is it an example that also illustrates how live streaming can actually be monetized?
Absolutely. So now if you take, and it's Jeff, spelled Jeff, it's called Jeff Together. Now essentially, starting at this platform where it started on Facebook, by the way. So literally this husband and wife team started interacting with people, helping them to train. It's now turned into a fully fledged business. They have I think it's about 10,000 people paying 200 Rand a month to get so to get this communication between themselves. There's one free live stream a day. The other 4 live streams are all paid for. Then they started on one-on-one coaching, where you could have a coach physically interact with you via a Zoom, for example, and every day help you to train, eat properly, etc., etc. This has turned into a multi-million Rand business since the beginning of COVID. I think there's massive opportunities. We're still trying to find the correct business model for ourselves as Discover TV, because music's a very different thing. It's still getting people to pay for live music concerts is proving to be difficult. So it's something we still need to find the right answer to. You know, donating to your favorite band's one thing, but paying 20 euros to watch a concert of your favorite band, are artists going to do that? There's an interesting platform called Patreon, I think it's called,
yes,
where artists are now starting to use Patreon to create communities. And that's essentially what we're trying to start with our Discover TV Live platform. Eventually, we're going to say, right, we're going to have behind the scenes from a making of an album, etc., one-on-one interviews with your favorite artists, and donate 5 euros a month and join our Patreon community where you can get all these exclusive live streams. So I think you're starting to see that happening in the music industry, and I know a lot of bands are using it quite successfully, but I think we're just at the beginning of that.
Yes, and probably the longer no physical concerts can take place, the more people think, okay, I can't spend my money anymore, and user behaviors change, and people start to understand that probably that's a good alternative, that and there is actually value. And there's one more question from Alain regarding what you mentioned. You mentioned VR live streaming. Do you have some examples? I think he would like to check that out. Is there something available?
There's a great platform we've started testing on called Iora VR. I'm trying to remember the URL. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Just trying to find the platform that I just can't remember the URL offhand, that we've been testing to basically be able to get an idea of where we can go into VR. So I'll send you the link afterwards, and maybe people, once they're watching this in VOD, will be able to click on that link and be able to see an example. So yeah, we're doing some testing. About 4 or 5 years ago, I was part of the Samsung VR original live testing group, and we were doing bands in 360, put a camera in the middle of the band and stream them live. I think the Samsung VR platform is now closed down. I'm not quite sure if it's still live, but I think because VR is still very much in its infancy, because we have bandwidth issues are still around the world, and when 5G starts to take off more, you know, I think we'll see. I don't know whether VR is the future, but it's exciting.
Exactly. There's one more question about how you, VR is just one of the topics, I think, about which you know a lot. And one of our viewers would like to know, where do you get all this information? Are there any blogs or Twitter users or YouTube channels that you could recommend to follow?
So in terms of VR, are you talking specifically around VR or just in general content?
In general, yes.
Yeah, well, you know, I just Google. Google is my favorite friend. If I'm trying to find out something, if I want to discover something, you know, my son who's 19, I've learned a lot from him in terms of where the future is going. And I think we learn from our children. I think they are probably the most important people we can actually study as live streamers, as content creators right now, are any kids between 13 and 18, or even younger. Because one is their attention span. How much attention span does a child have? Because they are the future. They are our future market. If we don't understand them,
yes. And speaking of them and this audience, what do you think about Twitch?
I love Twitch. I think, as I mentioned to you earlier, with Black Coffee, with these live streams that we've been doing with him, we've targeted Twitch in quite a big way for those live streams. And I think it's a great interactive platform. And if we could get music and gaming to cross and I think that's going to be an interesting one. And Electronic Arts did it quite successfully with FIFA, where they were inviting artists to submit music to the FIFA games. And a lot of actual big bands got born out of their music being discovered on a FIFA game. So I think if you could find where Twitch and music, gaming and music start to intercross, and you could have a live game and you could have a band playing in the top corner or a DJ. I think you could find some very interesting things starting to happen. And Twitch is an interesting one for me. I'm not a big fan of TikTok. I just think it's the same thing again that we had in the beginning of Instagram video. Yeah. Everybody, it's a fad. I think it'll die. But where Twitch is a totally different scenario, and I think Twitch has a lot more opportunity to be interactive, and that's where I think AR and AI becomes a big relevant topic in that space. So yeah, Twitch is probably the most exciting platform for me to watch right now.
And you just mentioned the short attention span. One of our viewers would like to know, how short is it really?
If I look at my son, and sorry, that's the only person I've got to go. Look, my son's a big Fortniter. So, I mean, you know, I've watched kids. They can sit on Fortnite for 6 to 7 hours at a time. I mean, it's frightening. I sit there and I watch them play Fortnite for about 3 minutes and my eyes start hurting. So, again, it comes back to relevance. If the content is relevant and is something that you are interested in, you will watch it. Whether it be for 1 minute, 3 minutes, or an hour or 10 hours, you will watch it. But if the content's not relevant, you're going to switch. And you're going to switch quickly, you know. And if you watch, it's the same in music. If you don't like the song or you don't like the radio station, and it goes back, we've been doing this for decades. If you don't like the radio station, what do? You change the dial. And it's exactly the same in the digital world. If you don't like the piece of content, you click next. So I think attention span is irrelevant to a large degree if the content is relevant. And I think that's probably the most important thing.
Exactly, and I think that applies to every content beyond live streaming.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Rubbish, they're not going to listen.
Thank you very much for these great insights, Julian, about your platform and live streaming in general. Yeah. Many thanks.
And listen, to all artists, please contact us. I mean, this is what we've built DiscovrTV for. It's for the artists. We're trying to provide a platform for artists to be discovered, to be part of a global community, and to get your music heard worldwide, not just in your local area.
That's very good to know, because later today there will actually be, at the end of our conference, there will be a live concert on air.
Looking forward to watching that. I'm looking forward to watching that.
We're looking forward to it as well. Now we have our lunch break. You will, the audience, if you are watching, you will see again our behind-the-scenes camera with some vinyl music. You've seen the player next to me.